Hello.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
First visit?
It is, yes.
Access upgrading.
Feeling lucky?
Really not.
I could figure it out if I just had.
What? Pull to open.
Pull to open.
Yes, and what do you do?
Honey, you were being mansplained.
Your motor functions will shut down. You'll be dead in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. Oh, I know.
No, seriously, I'm on this. This is going to be the least I've ever let anybody down.
The starseed will bloom in the flesh, all right.
I bet you say that to all the boys.
Ho, ho, ho! Happy holidays! Merry ham and cheese toasty day to all those who celebrate, and most especially, happy chair day. I am Chris Taylor.
And I'm Pete Pachal, and yes, this is Pull to Open, the only podcast that takes the entire run of Doctor Who in random order, except for today, the most special of days.
That's
Not
right.
just because it is, Christmas Day.
We are living the day in order, you might say. Not the out of order, and we've always wondered what it would be like to live a day in order. So here we are on Christmas Day. Merry Christmas, Pete.
Merry Christmas, Chris.
I hope you like my mug. I
love your mug.
On the internet, there are millions of these things on the internet for some reason. I do not know why.
I've got that mug in the background. I think people could say, or a similar mug. I should probably go get it because I should be drinking out of it. Instead, I've got my eggnog in a very normal-looking glass.
That's
which,
okay.
There's a lot of normal things that sometimes aren't actually normal, though.
Yes.
Whether they be doorways, perhaps. Hotel reception.
Mm-hmm. So we just
so joy to the world.
Joy to you, dear listener. Joy to us. Joy to the world. Joy to everything.
We're totally thrown off because we usually have this thing where we misdirect and reference things on the random episode as we lead into it. No, we're not. We're just doing it. We're just diving right in here. That's right. We're talking about the Christmas special that was just broadcast. Joy to the world.
I mean, we could do
2024 Christmas special.
That's right. We could say previously on Pull to Open, we went to a story that contained an Easter egg, stuff like that. All the proof that the randomizer wanted to lead up to Joy to the World in many ways, and it kind of did.
Well, we could say that previously, except we previously taped it and it hasn't actually been posted yet.
Ah, yes.
The last thing in Pull to Open is actually forward to Doomsday right now. So that we posted a few days ago.
Yes.
And now here we are in the present day, in the present of Joy to the World. We got the Christmas special. And then there's a couple things in the can that are coming later. But
I guess
never mind about that.
We are living time out of order. The Doctor got to live time in order in Joy to the World, and we do not. We still do not. Things are out of order. As far as you're concerned, dear listener, Forward to Doomsday is the most recent thing, and the Easter egg I noticed in there was the many flesh time references, which corresponds to Joy to the World, and its flesh will rise. The starseed has bloomed now. But is our flesh rising? Pete, how's your flesh?
Okay. Must we?
It's Christmas! We've got to tell Christmas cracker jokes and double entendre.
My flesh is glowing. I like it. Okay, so here's the thing. All the timey-wimey references to our own podcast feel very apt right now because this is, it's a Steven Moffat special. He's all about time jumping, time being done out of order, and time being kind of fragmented all in one location. So honestly, I feel like Steven Moffat almost can't crib himself any more than he already has. And yet he keeps topping himself in terms of how much he's borrowing from himself. You know what I mean? We talked about this when we did Boom. Which of course was the other episode that he recently did from the previous season,
right? And
how he borrowed the things.
Villain Guard Industries was
exactly
So
he's kind of arguably he's doing a little bit of his own new continuity with these two episodes, but I see just so many elements that he's kind of you might say it's either his bag of tricks or homages to himself or just outright. Hackery of himself. Now, this is the thing. I love Steven Moffat. He's written some of the most brilliant episodes of Doctor Who. He's, he owns the record book in terms of which episodes the fans love the most, and I think the latest Doctor Who magazine polling shows that. So it doesn't really matter what I think, but like, come on, dude, like you're doing time windows again, just like Girl in the Fireplace. You're doing the hologram gets uploaded into the villain's equipment and sort of takes it over again. You just did that.
And
you did that in Boom.
Here's the thing that I love about Moffat. He knows it. He knows that he just sort of... And I want to say that there is a recent interview, I can't remember if it's Doctor Who Magazine or where we saw it. I think it was somewhere where he was supposed to be not spoilering. And he said, I'm repeating myself so much when, like, I pitch stories to Russell all the time. And I don't know when I'm repeating myself. And I pitched a story to him and he said, isn't that basically the God complex? And he was like, oh, yeah. So I'm thinking that Moffat is telling us in a very tricksy Moffat-y way how Joy to the World came about, how it evolved. It's you can see that starting off as a God complex ripoff, right, with the Time Hotel, very much mirroring the hotel, where every room is different, every room has a different fear in it. So
what was your overall feeling before we get into sort of the details? We've already kind of, already zeroed in on a few of them, but let's zoom out again. What did you think of this one right off the bat?
Well, I, as regular listeners know, I get these screeners of the episodes in advance. I torture Pete with them, and I watch them. And for weeks I go around saying things like, "Excuse my French, but what the French is going on here?" Safe in the knowledge he has no idea what I'm talking about. I thought that was a great line, by the way. So I've had some time to marinate on this. This is what we do. It's the lukewarm take and your hot take. And I got to say, the first time I sobbed. I'm not afraid to say it. I did a shooty. Tears were flowing, and it was because of Joy's mum being on her own in the hospital, dying at Christmas with the COVID regulations, and specifically Joy's anger at all the people with their wine fridges and their parties. And that's a very specific reference. Anyone in the UK watching that knows that's a reference to basically Boris Johnson's government. This is kind of the reason why he fell. It did not live by its own COVID restrictions. There were people not attending funerals, not attending, visiting people in hospital. Hundreds of people died in hospital during COVID. Hundreds and hundreds. The people couldn't see that they had to say goodbye to on an iPad. So this is raw. This is raw as raw eggnog. This stuff, and it touched the nerve. I think Nick McLaughlin managed to unearth that, and I really wanted to say, my first thought was, my God, I hope Boris Johnson watched that. Like, I hope that there's this. He understands this sense of righteous anger throughout the country that they in 10 Downing Street kept having parties and ignoring restrictions and all of that, while we didn't even visit our loved ones in the hospital.
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of, I definitely got that. I got to say, the politics of this one are kind of all over the place in some weird ways. Like I almost don't want to think about the politics to it, but you can't. That final scene sort of brings it right home. It's like, oh yes, okay, this is clearly about COVID. Obviously, we knew that, but I mean, seeing it just makes it more raw. And then I think it's a really good point that in Britain specifically, there was sort of this. Not that it didn't happen in the U.S., but I think it was very much that specific scenario was much of a lightning rod in Britain, right?
Yeah,
and so. Again, I'd just seen this, so I'm still processing it. But I kind of felt like, oh, interesting. This is like saying, condemning, like combined with the line, which kind of went over my head about the political class not respecting those restrictions. I think makes it a little more specific. If you were to zoom out more on it, though, you could sort of read into it that it's like, oh, all that COVID stuff was bullshit, right? Which is arguable. But I don't know if he was. That's kind of what I was sort of reading into it a bit.
Interesting.
As I was watching it, and then again, I'm not taking a stand either way. I'm just saying that like that's kind of what I was reading into it.
Right.
But but then earlier, well, not earlier. Like let's go to the final scene, even where he's like in Bethlehem, and this is like the most 100%. God reference, like Christianity reference here in Doctor Who, which again, it's fine. Christianity is part of history. There's a whole thing like, let's do it. Which I thought was cool. There. Like, exactly. It's kind of like they went there, right? So there's all of that. And that on top of, even the stuff earlier with Shooty and his interactions and the stuff in the hotel, like I don't know, like there was more inclusivity or something, but not quite. Like there was like what I liked, that there was sort of gay vibes here and there, but nothing too overt, right? Like so it wasn't like Rogue, where it was full on.
A few mentions of boyfriends, and clearly
and girlfriends in the Orient Express.
Yes, and Anita, the hotel manager who he works with for a year,
sure.
Like, oh, Guy Fawkes is your boyfriend, which I thought was great. I mean, I thought a lot of this was really well judged. But since you went there, let's go there straight away. They went to the birth of Jesus, which is. And I watched that and I was like, oh my God, I'm surprised that they haven't done that before, right? When it comes back, you think about it, like it's literally Christmas. Doctor Who and Christmas, they go together. Like, let's at least one time reference the historical origins. Although I gotta say, not to Christ-splain to Steven Moffat, but we know now that Jesus was born at the latest 4 BC, so no, that was not Bethlehem 10001, as it says.
Right.
Nice. that nitpick aside, like, what are you going to do? Bethlehem -4. That wouldn't work for a big ending. But that really worked for me.
There is something, I think, again, I'm so removed from this lesson, but I remember the Georgian calendar and stuff got all like reset somewhere along the way, and so. I think Jesus was born in like either 3 BC or 3 AD or something like that, which just kind of sounds weird because BC is like before Christ. But
yes, I know. Came along before himself, and he had birthday and Christmas on the same day. What a difficult guy to buy presents for. Almost a little doctorish, you might say. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad that they went there, and they did it in a way. So we recently went to Gridlock. You may have heard our Gridlock podcast. And we discussed the use of the old rugged cross, and I mentioned that I thought that sort of took me out of it a little bit, because all of a sudden I'm wondering, oh well, what is it in this future? Is it is it Christianity? But then why do they have the green crescent on the hospitals? Like I was taken out of it, despite the beauty of the hymn, despite the beauty of the music. Here, I'm willing to roll with it, like totally. Like no matter what your beliefs. Like it's not explicit, right? Although I did, like, as a fan of the life of Brian, I did sort of expect them to kind of pan down to the stable. No, not that stable. The next stable next door to it. But it works because it's not so explicit. It's just Bethlehem, and the last line, "Joy to the world." It gives you the spirit of the season and a little bit of the, actual origins of the season without pushing it, really.
Yeah. I think so. I think it keeps it at arm's length enough. And again, it really sort of comes down to referencing the historical basis for all of this. And then with Joy being the Christmas star, which kind of like, as all that stuff was happening with their mother and stuff, I thought for a second, well, wait, that doesn't make sense, because if it's 2024, like it would be 4 years in the future, right? Because that's kind of what I was assuming she was at. Then I was like, it comes back and you realize, oh, it's actually way back in time. Got it. And then I guess you have to assume that the star just kind of was there and picked her up, I guess. I don't know. Like that's what the whole star thing, and the fresh flesh will rise.
Well, it does.
All
of
does
that
get
into the issue of resurrection, right?
Right.
And that's to me, that's what it's referencing. And again, it's subtle. It's subtle enough that you can read it multiple ways. You can certainly read a Christian meaning into what happens to Joy's mother, right? There is the sense of resurrection that is what the Christmas star is for. But again. It also it's just a thing that happens at the end of a thing that is an entertainment for people in a living room where they're loud and a little bit too drunk.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the thing. I mean, he doesn't cross every T and dot every I, and I could definitely pick at it. The main thing that I sort of would pick up, I guess, would be the villain guard plan and how exactly did they circumvent it, other than that one dude were essentially still working for the doctor, even though he's now part of the weapon. And then this thing becomes, it's not a weapon, it's like an experimental energy source or something.
Right,
and so it becomes this thing. So like, I don't really get why it then is in her control and not villain guards. I guess because she ate it or something. Like, what did she do?
I gotta wonder if that wasn't the whole programming to begin with. Like, if she didn't do it exactly as villain guard intended, even though she thought she was doing it from a free will point of view. Like, of course, villain guard wouldn't want the legal hassle of destroying Earth. In 1 AD. I mean, God, the class action lawsuit from every other human being in history would be insane, including the Time Hotel. So it would create a paradox. You couldn't really do that. So maybe it had to go off planet. And I got to say, nobody tell Villain Guard PR department that they are responsible for the Christmas star. Just don't do it. We'll never hear the end of it. They're going to put out a press release about this. It's going to land in my inbox. They're going to be puff pieces from here to doomsday. I mean, goodness me.
You think that might turn around their image, though?
Yeah, well, exactly. They want to. Right. Yeah, they want to. Even though they may not have had anything to do with that plot. Or maybe the evil plot did succeed. I'm not quite sure.
So I want to talk about my favorite part of this, which is the whole two doctors part.
Yeah, it's a multi-doctor story.
It is.
I love it.
And he walks in on it himself, gives him the code, and then forces him to stay there for a year and essentially, be a person and make a friend and, reflect a little bit on where he's at and how he's living his life and maybe like what
and maybe
Ruby's
why
up
he
to.
doesn't and maybe why he doesn't own any chairs in the TARDIS, which is interesting. Bill did point out the lack of chairs, Bill Potts, but evidently this has not yet sunk into the Doctor's brain. He wasn't listening, but now he gets it, and I fully expect season 2, the TARDIS is just going to be like a furniture showroom. It's going to be chaise longues. There's going to be, massive couches. There could be pull-out sofa beds, futons. Like the Doctor's not going to neglect seating after this, I think, especially not after chair day. 52 chair days will change a man.
Those chairs worked out for him.
Yeah.
But I really like that. I love the line toward the end where he says something like when he becomes the other guy who walks in through the Time Hotel.
Yes.
And he's like, well, you never came up with the code. And he's like, bootstrapping. It's kind of a long story. It said the universe began this way and nobody ever asks about that. So never mind.
Yes. One of the best lines. Absolutely love that line. It's like there's so much. The entire universe is contained in that line, quite literally. It did come from nowhere. We haven't figured it out. But I love it. I don't know about you, but I in the Dave Gibbons Doctor Who comics, very very early in the run, there was a great comic where the fourth Doctor comes in and punches himself on the chin.
Yeah, I do remember that.
You're right.
It was like the cover of the Doctor Who comic, the Marvel re-release. Yeah,
that was one of my favorite things to happen in Doctor Who comics. I always wondered why you couldn't have something like that in the show. Well, you still don't quite have anything like that in the show, but like this definitely tickles that same thing. It's the Doctor doing worse than punching himself on the chin, like reaming himself out for nobody likes you. I mean, you say that, like, Moffat was stealing a lot from himself here, and I absolutely agree with that. But also, there's a lot he has done here that we've been waiting for since the beginning of the show, in many ways. By the way, Hartnell did have more chairs, just saying.
Yeah, it's funny that when the Doctor meets himself, it was like you think about the early ones with Pertwee, where he would just kind of walk in and that was more just, goofy, an excuse for a goofy scene.
Right. Day of the Daleks. Yeah, we talked about that.
I'm trying to think of the only other time. I don't think there was another time in Classic Who, if there was one, where it's like the same Doctor, and we had to wait till Father's Day to actually see the idea.
Yes.
But we never saw like an interaction like this.
And also the fact that the Doctor, the younger Doctor, shall we say, goes straight to, "Oh, you're so annoying." Like, there's no like, "Wow, hey,
can't stand himself."
Great. Yeah, I know. And it's like, it's interesting because, David Tennant and Matt Smith, they were kind of like, "Oh, we're checking each other out," kind of thing, But yeah, Shooty and Shooty, no, they're not really into each other. But yeah, the bootstrappiness of the code thing, the fact that he could just do that, he says, "I'm going to do that." It's one level up from, I'm going to remember to do that later, or, I've just been handed this file from Sally Sparrow, so I know what I need to do exactly at every step. Like it's
more. I was actually more thinking like the Bill and Ted paradox, right? Where they just kind of, well, we'll just remember to do this later, so we can do whatever we want.
Yep, exactly. But this is a little bit more than that. I mean, and it gives you a reason. It's the whatever technobabble reason Steven Moffat needs, but it kind of makes sense. Like, it's a time hotel. The doors are all connected. It's paradox locked, sure. So he can finally do this thing that he's always wanted to do. So that's new, and the spending the year in order that is also new, and it's kind of almost. It's almost as if the rest of the episode is like an Easter egg, a chocolate Easter egg around this surprise toy of the year in the hotel.
Yeah, no, I agreed.
And also, we get to see what the Doctor would be like just working a job where he uses psychic paper in the restaurant, and where the Sonic is doing the sweeping, and the oven gets to be bigger on the inside, and I loved the bit with the sat nav doesn't take me where I want to go. Ah, yes, but it takes you where you need to go.
And the car being blue.
Yes, and the car being blue. And in this Doctor Who universe, apparently lots of people are leaving. Maybe it's the people from Linda. They're leaving lots of blue boxes on the internet.
Yeah, it's funny. That is weird.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they kind of go back and forth about the Doctor being super famous or not, and every now and then he purges information for himself on the internet.
Yep.
And I guess you have to, I don't know what you have to assume about a Great Britain in Doctor Who, that they did have police boxes. So there is probably some, weirdo fan club just of police boxes, even if you're not aware of the TARDIS.
But there would have been people who'd seen it out of the corner of their eyes. They're like, "Oh, that's
well." Again, they go back and forth on this. One of the better stories. Again, I keep coming back to it. But it's Hunters of the Burning Stone, which has a lot to go for it. But there is a whole thing about the police box getting imprinted on humanity in some way, right? This could be sort of. I'm sure Moffat wasn't thinking of that. But the idea that, people had seen this police box, plus there used to be police boxes, so there's obviously sort of an online forum around it. Community has arisen. So that's kind of what I read into that, if anything. But he spends a year alone and needs to sort of stay in this place. So it's realistic he would keep a low profile. He wouldn't reach out to, Tenant 14 and, or get involved in other stuff because he knows he's just got to sort of complete this loop and be done with it.
Yeah.
And I like how he says goodbye to him. Yeah, I love how he says goodbye to. Sorry, I forgot his friend's name, but
Anita, I think.
Anita, and it's just probably the most beautiful scene in the whole thing.
Yeah,
and because they have something meaningful and they have a really good goodbye, but he also is like, "Look, I've got bigger fish, not bigger fish, but I have previous commitments." I think that's kind of what he says. Like, I made promises, and I've got to go.
It's a very touching scene, and what I liked about it was that was it. Like, you sort of expect him to come back to her when it's all done. But the fact that he just gets her a reference to the Time Hotel is even better. That's just that sent the shivers down my spine more than some cloying scene where he shows up again and says hi to her again, right? Where would you go with that?
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, I think this the more I look at it, the more it feels like a nice sort of piece of clockwork that Moffat has arranged here. Like there's a lot of very spare dialogue. It's giving Heaven Sent vibes in the sort of the meticulousness of like no line is wasted. And a lot of lines when you watch it again, you see a lot of lines are doing double duty. And the other fun thing that they do to for the Christmas crowd that Moffat has always said he's talking to, the drunk people in the living room, the rope, the time rope going through.
Yeah. That was cool.
Yes, that was cool, right?
That was a good little temporal action sequence, I have to say. Like, really smart. Oh, I can use the train. I like that they use this sort of very physical, visceral thing that you kind of understand. And you get, I get it, because the train's going and he can get some force in it and pull this thing off just by using the stuff from Mount Everest. It's like, okay, it's a bit random, but it works. Yeah.
Well, you know what else it was? It sort of felt, and a lot of this episode felt a bit like a more mature version of Blue's Clues. It's like, because right at the start, he's like, wait a minute, what did I see? Wait a minute, I'm putting my coat on, I'm getting my Sonic. What did I see? What did I see, kids? Like, what did he see? Like, and Moffat likes to tease you. He's like, you're supposed to be looking for something right now, haha, and you haven't noticed it, haha. But I love that. And I love the fact that he's like, rope, where did I see rope? And we have to search back in our own memories. It's almost like an interactive game, right? Where did I see rope? Oh, in Edmund Hillary's tent on the side of Mount Everest. Oh, yes.
I got to say, the Time Hotel definitely gave me Loki vibes. Like the whole thing.
Yes.
And kind of, you feel like I like that it's almost like the TVA, but all they do is run a hotel.
Yeah.
They like much lower stakes. I just kind of like that idea. And
I love that it's a hotel that just sort of, it has all these amazing advantages, but still things are a bit rubbish. Like the fact that it's, the kitchens are located 30 minutes in the past. So you put in your order, you immediately get it.
Oh, that was amazing. Yeah,
but
that was really
microwaved.
Cool.
You can't have everything. And a lot of this, like, it feels like, I don't know. I think Steven Moffat is sort of ascending into his final form, which is the second coming of Douglas Adams.
Yeah, right.
So much of this was Adams-ish, wasn't it?
No, agreed. Yeah, like that. I was just going to say that whole thing with the kitchen 30 minutes in the past, and so you get it immediately. And I thought, oh, that's brilliant. And then to the joke that it's still microwaved. I mean, it's just like, oh yeah. You're just getting so much mileage out of a concept and combining the fantastic with the mundane in just really smart ways. Yeah.
And of course, we should point out this is a collaboration between Moffat and RTD. And we've said it many times in the past on this show. RTD is great at reining in Moffat's excesses, right? He's a good editor of Moffat. And you got to feel that like the original version of the script has had 59 more clever concepts and 36 more zingers, and was a bit more incomprehensible because of it. Whereas this is just the right amount. And maybe we've said it in the past on the show that like you put them together, they're like the Beatles. Maybe you put them together, it's like Douglas Adams. It's just the right amount of concepts and just.
Well, and I'd say like they're getting together and becoming this. They always have been this great duo. But I would say that in this episode in particular, they're really polished at writing for Ncuti Gatwa too, right? Like I think this was a script that was really made to bring out his strengths, but not overdo it. Like, yeah, there was a little bit of teariness, right? He emotes, but I was much more taken with his happiness and his energy. When good things happening to the Doctor finally, you know what I mean? I think that's a really smart way to sort of cap both this season, where he had a lot of sadness and a lot of crying scenes, and then we get to see Ncuti. Again, he's a very emotive Doctor. That's the way he's playing it. That's the way they're writing it. So they wrote this in such a way that they make use of his energy and get all the sides of that range, and then sort of ending it on that joy to the world note. it just really worked for his, like, it was just perfect for him.
You're right. It was great for Shooty. By the way, the other Douglas Adams shout out, he was wearing Arthur Dent's robe.
Oh yeah, that's true. Right at the beginning there.
When he walks out right at the beginning, gets his milk. By the way, the randomizer, I think, because it took us to Edge of Destruction, the only story to show you the milk and water machine on the TARDIS. But now he has a thing that hones in on fresh milk, and he could just get a fridge, but he's got the TARDIS lands somewhere with fresh milk. That is just brilliant. Just I love it. I absolutely.
Of course, it takes him to the Time Hotel, right? Like, taking him where he needs to go. He couldn't just go to any Best Western with a continental breakfast,
right? And arguably, he needed the year off. He gets a bit of a dose of what 14's got, right?
Yeah.
All that time off. He needed a year off. He kind of gets that. But I think that you're right when you say, like, this is a good capper to the season where he was very emotional. Like, we talked about Last Christmas when we went there, and how that was the thing that changed Capaldi's character from season 8 to season 9. Like, it's a different Capaldi, and the pivot point is Last Christmas. So it's an appropriate time, a sense of renewal, birth, rebirth, starting again, New Year's resolutions coming up. So it feels appropriate. And I've got to say, I was a little worried about the year off, because it's the year we're about to experience, right? It's
2025.
Yeah. And I was like, oh God, is it going to go like years and years here? Is it going to like Moffat, you're tempting fate, sir. You're tempting fate. Nothing big would happen that would destroy a random hotel in London in the year 2025. I really, really hope that you have knocked on all the wood before you wrote that. But did you notice the one piece of news we do see?
I did not see. No,
it is on the back of the Doctor's reading a newspaper while the Sonic is doing the sweeping, and it says something. Paper's folded over, but it's a big page headline that appears to say something about a skeleton of Versailles.
Oh, okay.
So I gotta wonder if that's not a Girl in the Fireplace reference. That may be something in there. Maybe it's going to turn out to be a Clockwork Skeleton. Maybe this is a foreshadowing of something in season 2, right? But yeah,
it could be. So So the Time Hotel, is that supposed to be in the year 4202? Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess, are we being made to think that Earth has casual time travel then? Or
Apparently.
Are these Earthlings? That's a little weird.
Yeah, but you know what? We're half an hour into this podcast, and that's the first time you thought of that. So I think Moffat has done his job. I feel like a lot of people are going to be having that realization afterwards. They're like, oh, wait a minute. But I mean, I do love the bit where Shooty says, Time Hotel. What's that then? And he has such a sense of interest and curiosity in his voice that it's just, you're like, yes, I'm with you, Shooty. What is that then? And when can I go?
Yeah, well, I also love the line, no wonder there was no room at the inn.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was pretty funny, because it's like, yeah, of course, if you could time travel back, like, there'd just be tourists everywhere on, Normandy Beach or wherever else. It'd be like,
it's got to be a very, very exclusive thing. And I did, to make one more Fort of Doomsday reference, I just love the people they keep running into in the corridors from all periods of history. Like, that's what you really want with a time hotel. They were, it sort of, reminded me of the Aborigines and the Mayans and the Greeks and the Fort of Doomsday, right? So it kind of had that vibe to it, but they're just there. They're the best extras. Got to give a shout out to Trev. I did love Trev's character. If you're wondering where you've seen him before, you might have watched Our Flag Means Death. He's in that. He's in a lot of British stuff. But what did you think of Trev?
Trev was good. He was a little dimmer than I think. I would have probably preferred a slightly more nuanced performance where he's a little smarter than that, but has also worked out that the Doctor is interesting and probably in the right here. In other words, like he seems a little bit like a low watt bulb who's just a little bit duped by him. And I don't know if I love that. I think it's okay.
But he does have this one line, and I got to say, this is Moffat's masterclass in how you create a character, make them feel real, where he says, this is going to be, I'm with you, sir, this is the least I'm going to ever let anyone down. And then just in that one line, you're like, oh, Trev, you've had a life, haven't you? You know, it becomes real, and I like that. I like little things.
I gotta say, like that's like a very economical line. You're right. That tells you a lot about him, and just a little tweak of the dialogue of what the normal line would have been. Really, really smart. I will say the turn. It's not with Trev. I guess it is when he gets the handcuff on him. By the way, I thought that was a really cool diabolical thing. To have happened to people, and I like that it gets serious then, because it's all kind of goofy and the milk, and it's like, okay, Steven, I guess we're having our clever fun thing, but it quickly enough he gets to something serious where the guy gets the cuff off him, and then pretty quickly there's a line about like, oh, you'll be dead soon or something like that. And so it's like, oh, okay, this just got real. And
it was the suitcase. It was the suitcase hiding in plain sight. And if you're keeping score, Moffat has now made statues scary. He likes to create a long list of mundane things he found scary. So now any kids seeing someone with a handcuff around their suitcase, who needs that level of security, which I don't think you see too often anymore, but it's still a thing, right? They're going to be like, oh no, don't go near him. The suitcase claw will get you. So thanks, Moffat. I'm sure some parents are going to love that.
Smart editing, smart effects too, because it's like they just kind of fade away in light. Whereas if you think about it, they could have gotten way more gruesome with that effect and have like skeletons and dust or something. And it actually makes sense on a certain level because Villengard would have wanted no evidence. So of course you would need total destruction of the body.
What did you think of the death of the Silurian manager? And the Doctor asks him to go into his past for some reason. Was that a reference that you caught, or is that a reference to the war between the land and the sea, perhaps?
Oh, good question. No, I didn't catch the reference. If it was one,
he just talks about something about friends that he had back then, or something like that. So I wonder.
Yeah, I like that they're trying to do a little more with the Silurians. This isn't a Silurian podcast, otherwise I'd go on and on about it. But I like that it was a Silurian. I like there's sort of an implication that somehow some vestige of them, comes out in the future, and they're just kind of around, which I think is kind of cool. I like that idea. And then I do like that, again, it gives Ncuti an opportunity to do his best, do what he does best, which is, try to, emote and try to connect with people. And he's talking to the Silurian ostensibly to save him, because that, in the same way that he saves Joy later. But I think after a little bit of that, he's just trying to comfort him, and I think that's kind of what that turns into. So there's a couple of different layers even to that sort of simple scene, which I really liked.
Gotta say, after this episode, the Doctor, I think, is going to face increasing pressure to go visit people in hospitals at the end of their life and just comfort them and talk them through it, because A, he's really good at it, and B, he's got a blue box that go everywhere, including in a hospital in the UK during COVID, right? He could have been with Joy's mum, which is actually I thought where we were going with that, right? But there's a lot of other people, Doctor. I mean,
I think because of the direct COVID reference, I think he wanted to keep that as raw as possible. I think the Doctor showing up there would have been a little weird. You would have had to start questioning on, are Time Lords immune to COVID or whatever? And then, I think you would have had to think about it a little too much, and it would have gotten a little too real.
Yeah, I
think just having it there and being very clear on what it was referencing, but then just having it be part of the story was the right call.
Yeah.
To the extent you're making that call at all. Again, I cannot wait to see the discussion online about this, to be honest with you. I almost want to log off and just go see it, because it's like, holy crap, this is gonna be a conversation starter.
Yes. Well, we have started the conversation here on Pull to Open. We're going to continue the conversation in the new year with brand new episodes for our new season.
Season 6 of Pull to Open.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. We're fleshing higher and starring Explodier. I don't know.
That's right. We're now sponsored by Villain Guard, by the way. If you're seeing any Spotify ads in this, they should be Villain Guard ones. I think they've got their new Christmas ad up. Set in Bethlehem 1AD.
All the deaths caused are completely tax deductible, and there will be, no cleanup for anyone. The Villain Guard guarantees everyone gets disintegrated, so all good.
Well, Pete, I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to doing exactly as the Doctor did and going through 2025 the long way round. I am looking forward to meeting you on that journey many times. So let's call it Chair Day.
Awesome. I as well, sir, have a amazing New Year. Something that is happy.
Yes.
And perhaps all the emotions that Judy was showing today.
That's right.
And
have an emotional New Year.
Listeners, have an amazing rest of the holiday. We will catch you on the long way around in 2025.
Merry Christmas, everyone.